Hi, I'm Sean. You're watching Shopworx on this episode of the 6-door build here. We're going to be completing stuff on the front there, tranny cooler, hopefully get the lines all buffed up in there, and add fluid to it, and get the rad support and everything bolted in there and see how that works out with the 4-inch raise of the body and or drop of the radiator and associated parts. Well, what I started out doing here was getting this transmission filter kit put on here. It's made by Derail. The way I want to do it is this pipe here is, I believe, the pressure line. I'm going to have to double check before we get into piping the rest of the way here. The goal last video was just to get it out front of the block because everything's going to move with the block that way. From here I have to transition it into some flexible lines, so I'm probably going to end up going with PTFE with the stainless braid. Another option would be like a single braid hydraulic hose. So this one here, if everything's correct, I'm going to end up shortening it up. We're going to come up and into the inside inlet of the filter. Through the filter, the reason the filter's here is to trap any crap if the tranny ever packs it in on here, which I'm assuming is a pretty good possibility. This filter should catch all the shrapnel before it makes it into the radiator cooler or the actual air to transmission oil cooler and then back to the tranny. So just kind of a safeguard. Out of here we're going to come out into the transmission cooler, out of the transmission cooler, short hose into the air to tranny cooler itself, and then from there we're going to end up coming back, I believe, to this line here. So once I get the rad support put on here and everything bolted on, I'll have an idea where I'm cutting. Maybe one of these is going to be longer, one's going to be shorter, make the bend. I don't really know till we start piecing it in here. Kind of one of those things, a little bit as you go. So what I did here is get that bolted on. I have a hard time marking holes and everything, so what I did is put some masking tape on the backside. Apparently the camera didn't catch any of that stuff there. I must not have hit the right button at the right time. So just do that, transpose it, stick it on, scribe it out, and away you go. Great, another winter weather advisory for work. So what we're going to do, I guess, for now, is set this up, get it started. These are kind of a little thin for washers, but it's what I happen to have handy today. It's a Sunday, so I'll find some fat fender washers. There's some extra thick fender washers on Monday. Let's see if we can't get this changed out. I'm going to have to leave it loose anyway, more or less, for adjusting for body panels. So I guess there's that. Now you can sort of see I'm not sure how much room I have here to play with, so. And then I'm going to have to go and try to find my box of brackets and parts I painted up almost 2 years ago. So that'll be my next conundrum. Leave that loose for now. Soon we're going to have to move it around, adjust it sideways. Here's what it is. Well, after doing some digging, I think these are, if I remember correct, these are my drop downs here for the condenser. So, I guess I'll find some bolts, pop these on, and find some nuts still, get those on, and then obviously these will be whatever, good old-fashioned 5/16 bolts, I guess. So. Weren't part of the truck to start with. Put the obligatory copper coat on them. The reason I'm putting this one in here first is sandwiches in between the tranny cooler and the radiator. I remember this now. I can make sure all my brackets are proper after getting this in as well. Alright, that's just loosely in, I still have to do these two bolts here. And make sure these pieces we slotted way back in, I don't know, what was it, episode 5 or something like that. See if I can find the right one later. We slotted these to go around the inlet and outlet on the evaporator. Physically drop down. Double check all this. That one fits and clears. You good there. Looks like it should work. Take these down and find some more stuff. We got this side? Yep. Sure it's going the right way? Yeah. What's the going fresh? That's a new one. Very cool. Should be somewhere close to this. Slide back in it. No, that goes the front. See, both the front here just about lines up. Yours does, mine doesn't. Doesn't go your way from. Well, I think you're going to have to cut some off the bracket to make it fit. Well, what's this for anyway? Hold the fan trail. Then we have the fan trail on and then set it down. It's been so long I can't remember what the changes were on the other radiator. I think we're using the top holes here.
No, we still got it.
Yeah. And then I think we're using the bottom hole here bolted into this bracket.
Well, this is your AC unit.
This is the AC.
And where's your transmission cooler like this?
Tranny cooler goes on the front right here. We're good there. That one I know fits. I knew this radiator being
Well, you said it's just somewhere right here to here.
Yeah, put 4 inches in it. So, the problem we're having here right now is the old radiator was the one I modified when we originally did the stretch on the front rad support here. So I guess I'm going to have to go digging and see what we modified to it. And then figure out how we're doing this. Because if I got to drop that in with the fan and everything on it, I may as well pull the bolts on here after, slide this off, put the fan on, and then put the fan shroud, and we stick it in. So it's definitely what's catching. Yep, pull it out.
I was using the belt file on it.
Well, I don't know. I'll go see what the other one is. I want some play. I don't want to rub them. This thing's going to have to come in and out a few times because I still have to do the fittings on the tranny cooler for it. Yep. I kind of wanted to mock it all up first before we start cutting irreversible stuff. So looking at this radiator here, you can see how it's got the two gaps in it. So it was bolted in here and here originally to the fan shroud. We had to cut this off. As you can see on this old radiator, this is the one I took in to see how much they'd charged to recore it, and wow, I was shocked. So let's say that didn't go as planned. So what we did is cut that out, and I re-drilled the shroud right here after cutting that other piece out. So I'm going to have to do that to this new radiator and try to figure out how I mounted the rad back in, what that hole there was for. So I knew I kept it just to make sure I could figure this all back out. Let's get her figured and back in. So what I've done here is I popped the plug back in. They had some kind of little barbed fitting, I believe, for the water pump to pass through at some point. Not sure how that was all rigged in originally. But my problem is this is the transmission cooler, and it looks like it was inserted and tightened down here before the rad was capped. So I've got a hose barb. Not sure, you probably can't see, you can probably see the bulge on the tubing here. So what I've got to do is I want to put JIC fittings on there. The only way I can do that is with a compression, and these are 5/16. So I'm going to end up converting them over to the JIC, something like that, for the braided hose. So my plan is to cut them off with a zip cut. Obviously I don't want any metal filings in there, so I'm going to be blowing 15 psi of air through here. Got my air chuck taped up. I'm going to push it through. I'm going to do obviously the open end first, cut it with a zip cut, and deburr it real quick on the inside with a drill bit, and rotate ends and start over again. And then we're going to move in and slice and dice where I need to on the rad. There, some air. Usually I've got oodles of abandoned emery cloth. When you need them, you don't have. Well, like I say, all I'm doing is just cutting off the hose barb part. Okay, those are not the noise maker author. We'll let that dry and see about drilling some test holes. Right, wrong, or indifferent for now. Throw some 5/16 bolts up here. See how this is going to fit. interesting observation, but looks like that gets missed with the shroud for whatever reason. No clue. Anyway, now that that's on, I can throw a clamp on. We'll drill the other 2 holes to hold it and see where we're going. So that's all ready to go. Have to figure the front mounts out. Probably do that on the 6-door. So, while you guys weren't looking, I went ahead and drilled the other holes there. I think I measured it out close enough. See if we can't drop this in and see how it fits now. Without actually dropping it in. So far we're looking pretty good. Obviously I don't have it centered and bolted in yet, but not looking as shabby as I thought it might. A little fudging around left to right and down, and another one there. Yeah, should work out good. And last but not least, the old tranny cooler. And start figuring out the hoses. So, what I'm looking at doing here now is we're going to be adapting these over to a weld-on 6AN, which is the same as a 6JIC end. I got those up on the bench. So what I got to figure out is how I want to run these hoses across back and forth here now. Starting to get an idea of how much room we have to play with and where everything's going to be sitting. Like here I wasn't sure. Originally what I was going to do, I can't really run the hose through here anymore, but I was kind of thinking about it. So I'm probably going to end up having to come off here with a straight under and back up if I can find some way to keep it from rubbing. And same with this one. So as far as I know, these things really aren't directional. I'll probably pass it through into the rad cooler and come out of the rad cooler under in here, out and loop up and in, and try to keep the hoses at least somewhat systematically there. So, just glad everything more or less mocked up the way it should here, the way we thought it would, especially changing the rad. And, yeah, keeping on. I gotta figure out how those fittings are gonna work. Alright. What my plan is here is I bought these 6AN, which are supposed to be the same profile as the 6JIC, which I'm using for all the hydraulic hoses. And cleaned them up. Cleaned the mating area up here, plus with some lacquer, some brake clean. Plan is give them a whirl, take them on here, both ends, and we can fit the hoses to it. Well, let's just say I fought with it for a while, had some oil, hard to get being used, keeping it clean. So I fought with it, and finally gave up trying to video it. What I'm doing now is I'm just going to pressure test it all. I got 15 psi air coming through. I'm just going to cap it off and spray some soap and make sure I don't have any leaks. Interesting. Gotta love weather. That's not what I wanted to see right there. Nope, that'd be Fortis or somebody else. But I might have to just blow this all over once more. Like this, I got leaks everywhere. Well, guys, so long story short, my AN fitting experiment really didn't pan out too well on here. I had them tacked on and it wasn't really turning out the way I was hoping to as I was welding. I ended up having flame shooting out, and you know, being a used tranny cooler, I tried to clean it. I put some lacquer in there and flushed it back and forth and drained it, and did that a couple times, and ran some brake clean, washed them off. I cleaned up with emery cloth and a file and stuff around, you know, prep the aluminum the way you should. And no matter what, I'd still keep getting flames out of it, and I guess if I'm getting flames, I'm getting contaminants. So ended up getting some porosity, and I chased it around and chased it around and chased it around, and finally gave up on it. And I was going to order some new ends and a new tranny cooler there, and John kind of said, hey, you know, you're trying to find a solution to a problem that really doesn't exist. And I was like, well, how so? I was kind of dead set on using AN fittings on it, and more and more we talked. You know, like, if you have a problem with this on the side of the highway, somewhere in the middle of nowhere, you're going to get another tranny cooler, and then you're going to have to put AN ends on it again. And unless you have some, like, who's got those in a small town? You always find somebody to weld them, but, you know, didn't really see a point packing fittings around just in case. And you know, figured, well, at this point we can adapt what I've had problems before with other ones, just trying to adapt from 3/8 to ½ inch or 5/16 to ½ inch. I've already got the other JIC fittings on there, so hydraulic shop wound up making some parts and pieces up for me there, and handed me what I need for adapters, and got a new performance radiator transmission cooler for 6 liters. So we're going to put this one on. We're not going to go with a solution to a problem that doesn't exist, and we're just going to run regular, good old-fashioned rubber hose back with proper clamps and everything back to the other side. The reason I was going with the stainless tube and the PTFE with the stainless braid on it was for the heat and longevity running beside the block with the exhaust and et cetera, et cetera. So we'll get this bolted on and finish up the last little bit of hose on here, and then tighten everything down. Besides, it's nice and shiny. I like shiny. Hopefully everything still bolts up the same. So because I'm not going with that stainless braid, I got some spiral wrap to cover up the regular hose here. So hopefully that'll do what I need, keep the abrasion down. Might get a bunch, put it on my Hydro Boost lines after as well. Noticed on my other truck there, had some problems on a trip and just about wore through about half the hose, so anything I can do to longeviate things, the better off I am. So, what I'm doing here is using that 1/2-inch hose, going from a 6AN. My guy over at the hydraulic shop, we've been dealing with for years there, said use 2 hose clamps, with the gears roughly 180 apart, and really should be a good secure seal on it. And then once I got the length of the hose I wanted, I cut it and put spiral wrap on it, like you'd use on your hydraulic lines. Not sure if you can see from there or not. I use my leftovers where the power steering lines seem to tighten up and whack each other there. So went out, bought some more for the other line, and we'll see how it goes from there. So the only way they could get what I needed there for 6 GIC to 1/2-inch hose is to use a 6 GIC to 1/2-inch hydraulic hose and cut the crimp end off. So that's what we're doing. Basically doing it that way, sucking it down and sizing them. Just like that. Well, I'm not too sure how good you can see there, but it's got the one off the rad there ended up going straight into a JAC 90 from an 8mm compression. The other one's straight into a JAC 45 from the filter. These ones here, I decided I'm going to cut them back so they're tight up against the block here, to gain as much space back as I can from everything, and you know, try to make things a little easier to work on. So I'm going to be pushing these back and cutting this one 3/8 of an inch back, and then this one basically flush with that and 3/8 of an inch back as well. So that's where we're at. Just hard to film under here, don't have a whole lot of space for tripod or nothing. So we'll get an after shot. I don't know if you guys have ever worked with any of this stuff or not. It's pretty simple just to put on. Get it started. Spiral it around. Started under here. Do the same thing with the hose clamps. 2 on each, facing opposite ends. I did measure them and tucked up and out of the way after. So I got it bolted down as far as the shroud goes, and ends I shortened up. We got all the fittings tightened up everywhere, the hoses, nothing's touching. The hard lines where they are coming close, I sleeved them with some 3/8 hose. Now I can start pumping some tranny fluid in and see how much it's going to take. Just throwing it out there that this is probably going to need to be topped off 3 or 4 times, given the fact that whole tranny was empty. Everything up here is empty as well, the lines, the filter, cooler, etc. So torque converter is empty. So I just want to make sure I have a bunch in there. I might even overfill on the dipstick a bit, just to make sure as we crank this thing over eventually there that nothing's going to be dry. Well, we've got one more thing left to do here that I want to get done, and then we're going to call this a video. And that would be taking this fuel line back apart. And fixing it a little bit better. If I can get it off. Holding better than I thought. Well, what do you know? I don't have to do what I was going to do. It's got a barb on it already here. Got the one, the second. I'm just going to put it back on and pretend I didn't even pull this apart. I thought it was just a cut off piece of pipe, so we're better than anticipated. You know, it's been a while then. And the reason I was checking that out is this is on the suction side of the fuel pump. And everybody that knows these old IDIs, they don't like air in the fuel system at all. All mechanical injectors. So I wanted to make sure I had a good airless connection. I was going to go put another fitting on there, on the line, compression fitting, and then come off with a hose barb, but after pulling it apart, I think we're going to be okay. So, let's skip this. Well, I guess we got transmission cooling fluid line system all done up on this episode, so we're doing pretty good. What I'm probably going to end up doing next is some fenders sized up here and start working on the battery trays, which are going to be reworked on here as well. So I think we're starting to get a little bit more on here. I got more stuff to walk around now and come in. So if you guys want to see the rest of it, hopefully it'll be coming out here in the near future. And like, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.